I'd now like to do a video where I go over the front and side and backyard of our house. It's mainly not edibles or anything, but wanted to kind of record what it looks like now, and that way we can go back and look and see how things change, how they fill in, how they bloom and evolve, and all these kinds of things, as well as going to show you what our area, what our abode looks like, our little farmhouse here. So coming up, this is our front entryway. We were going with the cottage garden type of a look. We've got some nice grasses that really took over at our last house. They haven't really taken over here. This is only the second year. We've been here about 2 years, and this house was built new. So none of this existed, and we've been working pretty hard at it. This is the first year it's actually really come together and is looking decent. This is kind of a new little bed where my wife's planted some sunflowers, and there'll be some climbing flowers if they sprout up. Not really seeing much sprouting up right at the second. The soil is very poor here. Sunflowers at least are doing decent. You can see plenty of those coming up, and those will be really pretty. But then coming along here, we've got the garden area. This fence didn't used to be here, but turned out that the dogs were getting in the garden beds and we wanted that separated, so built this recently during all these projects I've been doing. And this is our front area. We created some pathways here because the kids were trampling through the garden area and trampling over all the plants. So the soil here is really bad anyway. It's red clay, and so really rough shape. When I plant a plant, I'll dig a hole, and then I'll take some of that red clay, get rid of it. The rest of it I'll mix with some decent soil or wood chip, soil conditioner, something, and then plant that back when I plant the plant. And so over time, hopefully it'll get better. We'll see. Some stuff like the bulbs have really thrived and done well. We've lost a lot of the plants we planted originally, but some of them, like this little blue star evergreen guy here and the one opposite, and this bluegrass at the front, and a few of these other plants actually came from our previous house, and they survived well, and they're thriving again. This ajuga might have come from our previous, or it might have come from mother-in-law. I'm not quite sure there. But we've got lots of different things. I think that lavender came from our previous house. We're able to salvage some of our stuff from there, and half of it died roughly, and half of it kind of continued on, and then we've added. So things have gone pretty well. You can see it actually looks decent now. It didn't a year ago. Didn't look very good at all. Hostas have thrived. Those actually came from our original house, and they've been moved around a few times. This guy, I really like him. Not even really sure what he is. Planted him last year, and he's really started to take off. Really pretty. Add some color here. We've got this little pathway here, and lots of kind of smaller flowers and bulbs along this area. These will start blooming probably in the next few weeks, and that'll be really pretty. Got roses there, peonies in the back that are just starting to come up. Again, all these bulbs that are starting to come up and haven't really blossomed yet. Some of the irises have, and that's about it so far. We've got these really pretty purple guys I actually just put in. Bought them this winter on clearance at Ace Hardware, and they were all looked very dead. Bought a bunch of plants, and they're very cheap, so that was nice. And sure enough, most of them all came back, and these ones really thrived in particular, and they look very pretty. So that's nice. We've got a type of magnolia here, and that's a deciduous one, but there were some blooms on it that were really pretty. You can see they've mostly died off, not so pretty anymore, but really pretty, very large white blooms that they get. This is a dogwood variety, as is that. They're more of a shrub variety, and in the wintertime, one of them has yellow twigs, the other has red twigs, so it adds some color in the winter, which is nice. I tried to incorporate some evergreens, like this guy's an evergreen there, the blue spruce are evergreen, the grasses, not necessarily evergreen, but they do stay around and add some color, which is nice. The ajuga you can still see a lot of in the wintertime. Again, like that kind of anchoring tree there, and one on the other side are little evergreen guys. You've got the different colored twigs on the dogwoods, so even in the winter it should look decent, especially as things grow up. We've got things like this guy's evergreen, so is that one there. That little shaggy looking light green guy over there. Tried to add some different colors, varying heights, different types. There's other stuff that we just planted this year in some of these blank spots. They're supposed to grow into some pretty decent sized bushes, different kinds of butterfly bushes, and like a hummingbird type bush that has flowers that they really like. Some of this stuff is stuff I planted the first year, and some of it didn't come back last year, but it did come back this year. And so it's been a little interesting to see how things go. But yeah, a lot of stuff actually is coming up, which is nice and encouraging. I haven't really looked through here in detail much at all. I've been very focused on these other projects, but it's actually looking decent. This guy kind of takes over. He came from our last house. He's from the mint family, but they have little flowers that hummingbirds and butterflies in particular really like, and the bush thrives. It kind of takes over, and that was the goal, is for it to take over this whole area. And then we've got these irises that are really pretty. Got some blooms there. Crabapple, he was really pretty when he was blooming. I think pretty much all of those have died off now, and now we've got these little look like berries there. So coming back behind here, we've got these kind of trellises that anchor our house, and it kind of matches with the screen porch area. We've got the stained wood, and that's screened in. And then over here, you've got the stained wood with these kind of columns that are supports for the roof here. And they ran, the builder architect had the idea of running these kind of metal panels here and using them to grow stuff on, and I've taken advantage of that, and it's worked really well. We've got these really pretty, I think it's some kind of clematis, I believe, not positive. And that one's, not sure if he's about to die or just now coming out, one of the two. And these ones are very big. So I've got those two varieties of flowers on this. Here I've got these like trumpet style flowers that are very pretty coming up on that vine. And then also some jasmine that's coming up right here. That's really pretty. And that's growing all the way up. Again, this is only their second full growing season, so they'll get there. This is a climbing rose, and so that should kind of take over. They end up growing more like a bush than a vine half the time, so personally they're not quite my favorite for that reason, but it is pretty and it does work well. So we've got there, got that there. Then coming over on the side yard here, you can see that that is the garden area that I've done other videos on. I will, I guess, briefly mention this section here. It's mainly my wife's gardens, and I built these, I guess, 2 years ago and fenced it in, and then I've since incorporated my area all around it. But we've got broccoli and kale under these tarps here that keep the moths out mostly. Got all the different kinds of greens and lettuces and some kales and something else in the back. I'm not really quite sure. I think those are bush beans if I remember right. Then we've got garlic and onions and other things that have been planted here that are just now coming up. We've got a whole bed of, I think they're called nebula carrots. They're like a dark purple carrot. And so interested to see how that turns out. Got some onions and then tomatoes in the back there. There's some other tomato seedlings, that's what it is, tomato seedlings, kind of in these blank spots on the end as well. So we'll see how those work. Like I had mentioned in a previous video, our tomato seedlings did not turn out so well, so we'll see if they make it. But then coming around the side and the back here, I did a similar theme as pretty much the whole property, where I did kind of some staggered bushes of the more native varieties of seedlings. We've got some more Leland cypress that'll get big, evergreens, and kind of block off certain areas there. These are some smaller evergreen bushes. Originally, none of that garden existed, so when I had originally planted that, that's why those are kind of split up by the fence there. That wasn't part of the original plan. But coming along here, it's mainly chokeberries and service berries and pawpaws and nanny berries, I think, are the most common, sparsely populated through here, in and out. And then I did a row here. You can see, hopefully, how they kind of zigzag like everything else. And the idea was that as you're coming up the house, to the house, coming up the driveway, and you're looking up, instead of having kind of an empty backdrop there, the idea would be that you have kind of a line, and it's kind of a curved, like a semicircle back there, of service berries, and that'll be a backdrop to the crabapple and the gardens, and it'll kind of anchor the end of the house and they're supposedly very pretty when they bloom. Pictures look really nice, so we'll see. We'll see how they turn out and if they're as pretty as they're supposed to be, but that should look really nice. And there's lots of them here, and actually I planted, for most of these, I planted two. So like you've got this one there and this guy here who has no leaves and might not have made it. The soil, again, like most places around here, is very poor, mostly red clay. But at least one of these look like they've made it with each of these groupings, so that's nice. Then coming through here, we've got the rest of these seedlings that are populated throughout here in between things. Some of these are doing really good. This is a pretty shady area, but works pretty well. You've got these are the chokeberries, black chokeberries, and then I think like serviceberry here and some other things. There also was, right here, is an inoculated mushroom log that hasn't sprouted anything. You can tell it's kind of laying over on its side. I don't think it's supposed to be. We'll see if anything comes of that. We've never grown mushrooms before, but we actually started with some inside. We've got a 5-gallon bucket with holes drilled in it and coffee grounds, and then inoculated that, and we've actually harvested from that some white oyster mushrooms, and they're very yummy. So we'll see if that one works out. I think those are shiitakes, but that's kind of new for us, so we'll see. We've got some other things here. We've got a big anchor in the back. Not really sure what that was. I think a mulberry. I mean, there's quite a few mulberries as well, and they get decent size. So again, the main theme that I've stuck with is put the big things in the back and then smaller things towards the front, and that way everything gets the amount of sun that it requires. Got a few more things here. Got a spot that the dogs always dig out, and so we'll see if that plant survives. I actually found him mostly uncovered about an hour ago. Covered him back up most of the way, and yeah, we'll see. He's alive right now and going well, so maybe he's pretty strong. We've got the fence line here, then we've got the really pretty view of the field here with some nice wildflowers, lots of bulbs that I'd planted last year, and then I've planted some of these shrubs as well along here, and then this leads back into the side yard where that garden is that I have shown you before. And that's the back of the house. So that's around the house area, since I've mainly focused on the gardens, and that's kind of my main point, is the homestead style. Wanted to at least give an overview of what the rest of the property looks like, and kind of the front and the side and the back and stuff. So now you've got a very good view and a very good idea, and that's it.